Welcome to the Trendy Outdoorsman. Today we show you how to easily install a modern high-efficiency toilet for only 100 bucks. I used a high-efficiency toilet from Menards just because there's one right down the street. I'll link below a couple other options for you. I got Home Depot, Lowe's, and Sam's Club have very similar ones for the exact same price. What tools are you going to need to do this? Start with a simple bucket. Then you're going to need a simple rag, a sponge of some sort, some cheap gloves, and either a monkey wrench or channel locks. Doesn't matter, one or the other will work. And lastly, just a flathead screwdriver. And then this is optional, and in some cases you're going to need a new water line because your water line may be rusty and pretty bad shape. These are like $3 or $4, pretty cheap. And lastly, all this right here comes with a new toilet when you purchase a new toilet. So it'll all be included into the kit. We'll go over how to do all that. The very first step you need to do is shut the water line off right here. Twist it clockwise until it gets really tight. Then the next step that you need to do is flush the toilet and hold it down and wait until all the water's gone. Keep holding it, keep waiting until there's no more water coming. If you don't hear anything, that's good. And the next thing you need to do, remove the back lid. You're always gonna have water in there. This is where the bucket comes in handy. Take your sponge, dab inside of there. Dab all the water. When it's all done, what you need your rag for is you need to put it underneath here, because when you go cut the water line from this, there'll be a little bit of water that drips down. So that's where the rag comes in handy. The next step, flathead screwdriver. Down in the tank, there are 3 bolts. So start by loosening those 3 bolts. Put your hand underneath, because you can hold the other nut while you're loosening the bolt on top. So this is what it looks like. Now some bathrooms will have 2 bolts instead of 3.
Do you have a memory card in here?
Yeah, it would tell you no card.
That's what you said about the pictures we took.
Learn from your mistakes.
Would you ever have a true plumber if you didn't see a little bit of
Oh, come on.
scrap?
Come on, baby, you can't film that. It'll hurt a lot of people's lives. Okay, then the next step is you have to disconnect the water line that's gonna be on the left-hand side. You may get a little drippage from this. All you gotta do is just twist it off by hand. Sometimes if it's a little tough, that's where these come in handy because you can just loosen it with channel locks. Then, just lift this up. Most of the time behind the toilet is gonna be a really funky different color. If you have any paint that's even similar to the paint that you have, paint it 'cause it's gonna be better than not painting it at all. Next up, you've got 2 bolts on the bottom of this toilet down here. This is where the channel locks, the wrench come in handy. Usually they're not very tight anyway, just because this is porcelain, you can easily crack this. Then the next step, just rock this a little bit. That'll loosen the seal, and then lightly lift it up. Kind of underneath all the toilet, you're gonna have this wax ring, the old wax ring. This is optional, but this will make it a lot easier. It's just grab some old scraper and some sort of a grocery bag, scrape the old wax. The next step can vary a little bit from one toilet to another. You want to make sure that this is actually level with the floor, and there are different spacers that come with different toilets. In this case, we're going to reuse the old spacer that we have and use the new bolts that came with the new toilet. So you're going to start by taking the wax ring off. The next step, make sure you put your toilet on something soft. Take the wax ring, put it right on the bottom of the toilet, kind of centering it, give it a little bit of pressure. Okay, so the bolts that came with the toilet, you put them in here, and then you use this guy here to make it nice and tight so it keeps that bolt from going anywhere. So you can do this on both sides. This is the hard part. So what you have to do is line this up to the best that you can with those 2 bolt holes. Once you line it up, just give it a nice little wiggle and push down so the wax can seal itself. Next, you can grab a level and see where your toilet is. I have a built-in level in my iPhone. It's a free app from Makita. I'm gonna link it below if you guys wanna download it to use it as well. But if it wasn't perfect, you would then get shims and shim in certain parts of the bottom to get a little more level. Okay, the next step is this piece that goes in the bottom. You'll put this on first, then you will apply the washer on top of that, then you will screw in the nut on top of that on both sides. Do not over tighten this because this is porcelain, so give it a nice snug fit and you should be fine. So in this case, I'm going to use these to tighten it a little bit. Then check the toilet and see how sturdy it is. Then you take these caps, pop them right on top. So in our case, we got a slight problem here. Our water line is not tall enough from the old one to the new one. The tank is much higher. So this is where that water line comes in handy that I was mentioning earlier. It's the right toilet. This may not be a toilet line. This is a faucet line.
Menards!
No. One store trip later. Sometimes you'll need to replace these as mentioned. You need a taller one in this case. So you just need your pliers, loosen the bolt down here at the bottom. Make sure you put a little plumber's tape on the threads. Tighten this new one. Take the top of the toilet, add the rubber seal that comes with it. Put this guy right on top. There's the 2 bolts that comes with your toilet set. You'll put the bolt into this guy, through that hole with the washer underneath, and with this nut, finish the seal. Do not over tighten it, just tighten it lightly, and then do the other side. This little handy tool came with this toilet, comes with a lot of them. You just use your finger on top, put this guy underneath, and just tighten it. So this part's important. Make sure you hand tighten it, but don't tighten it too hard at all. Now, when you keep doing this, go back and forth when you do this. It's gonna be snug on top. Do not over tighten this. You can crack this tank. When you start to hear that the porcelain touches the other part of the porcelain on both sides, just check to make sure it's tight. You're good to go. Just connect the water line right to the bottom of the toilet. Now, when you tighten this line, you just hand tighten it. Then double check everything. Nice and sturdy. Ended up getting the toilet with the top flush instead of the side flush. We thought it just looked a little more modern. Put that in, screw this underneath. Make sure you line up the buttons with the buttons there and just hand tighten this. Now this step will vary from one toilet to another, but essentially it's the same concept. It's just gonna be plastic screws that go through the piece, and then there'll be a cap on top. And with the flathead screwdriver on top, you can just hand tighten underneath while you're holding the nut on the back. Use the screwdriver on top. Now don't over tighten this yet because you got to do the other side. And when you're ready to tighten them, make sure that the toilet seat is as level as possible, and then slowly tighten them. And for your final step, you put these 2 caps right on top of here. Then you're all done. You turn your water back on slowly. Make sure you don't have any leaks. Now sometimes these shutoff valves will leak after you start messing with them. You can use a flathead screwdriver to tighten it to make it stop leaking. If you can't, you'll have to replace the shutoff valve. They're only $5 or $6. But everything sounds good. Check in the tank. And when you're all said and done, take your pants off and test the toilet. Make sure it's good. One last thing that is optional, but I recommend it, is caulking the underside of the toilet lip all the way around. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. All the products that I mentioned are linked below. We are working on many more videos, so I hope you guys like and subscribe to this channel. We got more to come.